are you?
Fantastic, buddy. How are you? You looking sharp.
Thank you. I'm getting ready to roll this morning.
I love the green screen background of the hotel room.
Of the Minneapolis downtown hotel, yes.
So you're in Minneapolis?
Yes.
Is it cold?
It's cold for me. I mean, I'm a San Diego boy, so there's this little white powder stuff on the ground. I don't recognize it.
Oh, you got some snow.
Yeah.
So last week I was in Colorado speaking at this company, and I decided to like stay for a week, and I got a blizzard on my last day.
Yeah. That's I had some guys that were caught in that exact same blizzard.
Oh yeah, and it was unbelievable because I'm from Florida, so that was the first time I had seen snow actively fall. Like I've seen snow on the ground, like I've arrived places and there's been snow, but I've never seen it like blizzard, like actively happen.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Hold on real quick. I'm going to plug in. I got my headphones on Bluetooth and they're popping in and out.
Perfect. You good?
Okay. Give me a sec. All right. How's that?
Perfect. You sound like a beautiful angel.
Yeah, that's good. I've got my big Yeti that I brought on the road just for you.
Dude, you're the best. I can't believe, you know what? It shows in the stats, like people will 100% listen to it. Like, all the time. Yeah. By the way, this is the podcast. Like,
okay.
Our intro banter and all of our conversation is just part of the podcast. We edit it so we sound, smarter than we are. But
Got it. Perfect.
So, first of all, I'd like to compliment you again on the offices. Like, your offices are by far the most beautiful thing. It's like they're like art.
That's good. That's really good. I mean, when we started the business, we were only 3 people. We were pressured by our first venture team to move to the Bay Area. They said, you guys should move up to the Bay Area. And we said, no, we want to try to do this thing in San Diego. And San Diego's a great town. But we designed our first office, and our first office was a little stiff. It was very functional, but it was if kind of an engineer had designed it. And then the second time around, when we were growing so much, we moved into a second building. We thought, we're going to spend the extra time. We had some designers. We had a lot of people just put in their input as to what we wanted. And yeah, we tried to build something that we thought would be really nice and really appealing for people to come work. And then we started taking advantage of, in San Diego, we're hosting events now. We just did a Girls in Tech event last week. And we've hosted job fairs and things like that. So I'm really proud of it. It's a great place.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely beautiful. Is there a way people do you have pictures on your website of it?
I think we do in the job area. I mean, I think we use it as a recruiting area. But I know we were showcased in Tech Cribs a couple years ago.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's look it up. Tech Cribs.
It's pretty self-explanatory if you grew up.
Especially where you are too, right? There's a lot of cribs out there.
Oh yeah, because it was funny watching that show. So many of the celebrities would buy houses in like Miami or Florida, and like on the coast, on the water. And so yeah, definitely lots of really cool cribs out here. But the way your office is set up on that hill, where you can see the other hill, like it's just it's like out of a movie. It's pretty neat.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
So that's where you guys are today. But let's take it back to to you in your first experience with technology? Like, how did you fall in love with technology?
So I fell in love with technology because I needed to figure out something to do after I realized I wasn't going to be a professional musician. And I got tired of living in my mom and dad's house, and thought I've got to do something else. So I actually took a programming class at a junior college. And I mean, again, I'm probably like 26, 27 at this point. Took a programming class, was pretty good at it, had a flair for it. We had a competition within the class to write a program that would play Battleship against another student, and it would have to try to pick what the best algorithm was to detect where the ships were and blow them up. And I won the competition. And so so it was something that I was I started to get pretty passionate about, and I thought this could work. And so I went to college for it. And then everything just happened so fast. My senior year of college, the second semester, there was a company nearby that was hiring some junior people, and so I applied. I ironically got the job and started working as a junior engineer. I hadn't graduated college yet, but then it was literally probably 6 weeks later that I got a speeding ticket driving into work, and I thought, traffic school is something you can do in the state of California. There is other places around the country that you can, but it was always like a detention for adults or timeout for bad drivers.
It is,
right? And you can get like comedian ones, and they're fun sometimes, but I thought to myself, this would be so cool if you could do traffic school over the internet. And a guy was sitting right next to me, and he said, "That's a really good idea, and we should start this business." And so I went from immediately working as a junior engineer to becoming a founder within like 6 weeks. And that's been the last 20 years for me.
Wow. That's exciting, man.
Yeah. So it was a great, the traffic school was a great company. It had that startup energy where it was literally coding around the clock. I would get up at 7 a.m. and be in the office by 8. I would code all day. I was the only one running the business. My two partners kept their jobs, and then they would show up about 5 o'clock, and me and another guy, we would code until about 10 o'clock at night. We would go home. I'd wake up with insomnia at about 2 a.m. and code till about 3:30, and then go back to sleep. And we did that 7 days a week for 6 months. The only change we made was that we cut out on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock so we could go home and watch The Sopranos. That's what we did.
Important, very important.
That was our thing.
Yeah. Now, did you like shower at the YMCA like Musk?
Yeah. It was probably a lot of bad dietary choices back then.
Yeah, I understand that. But you did what needed to be done to get to where you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that's super respectable. Now, the company that you founded now, that's been around since what, 2008? 2008. That is not the online traffic school. That's Tealium. What was the inspiration behind Tealium?
So I left the traffic school after about 4 years, and I had made the decision that I was a really good startup CTO, startup entrepreneur, and this company needed to grow. And so I bowed out. I like to think I bowed out gracefully, and told my partners, we need to bring somebody else to take this the next leg of the race. And I took a year off. I didn't do anything for a year. I got a dog and pajamas, and that was it. And so I tried to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I started researching this San Diego company called Website Story, which did real-time analytics. And I thought that's very interesting for me. And I felt like I felt like that was where the puck was going, and so that was where I wanted to skate to. So so I went there, got a job there, and did that for a number of years. Was very successful there. I was as a normal contributor. I was just on the engineering team, but I quickly made it onto the architecture team. Uh, did that. And then all of a sudden, our competitor, a company out of Utah called Omniture, comes in and buys us. Right, very very unexpected. And this was probably around October 2007. And I thought, this is, first off, it's hard when you get bought by a competitor because you've competed against them so much. But the second piece of it was they were based out of Utah. They were going to run everything out of Utah, and I like to be kind of a heartbeat kind of guy. So I like to be where the action is happening, where the decisions are being made. And I thought, I'm from San Diego. I'm not moving to Utah. So that was it was an easy choice to to kind of look at something else. And then I started looking at some of the strategy that they were thinking about doing, and what they were thinking was this was really going to be a rip and replace strategy, where they were going to have me in particular, because I knew both software platforms, have me rip the website story software out from their existing customers, which was about 1,000 customers, and just put the new Omniture software in place. And I thought, this just isn't very customer friendly, and it doesn't work. And the thing that worried me at the time was I did not think that ultimately the combined entity got bought by Adobe for about 1.7 or 1.8 billion dollars. I thought that they were going to get bought, but I didn't think that they were going to get bought. I would have never guessed Adobe, but I thought Oracle was going to buy them. And then I thought, here's a company that has an extremely fixed schema because of their relational database platform. And I thought, I'm just going to be doing this again with the same set of customers, where I'm going to be doing a rip and replace. I'm going to rip out the Omniture code that I just spent a year putting in place, and then I'm going to put in place some Oracle code. So I didn't think that was good for customers, and I didn't think that was a good plan. And you're right, I don't know that it ever works. And so
it's always expensive, and it takes a lot of time. And then it's like, just change the logo and like make the UI slightly different, but don't rip out everything. I mean, just buy them for the revenue and the brand.
And then you get to the point where you never quite get to parity either, where it's like, oh, well, with this solution I had this and this and this. Where do I see that? Where do I get that? Oh, and then it's just a big letdown for everybody, and they don't focus on what they're getting, but they really heavily focus on what they're missing.
And that's after the data team rips their hair out with the ETL for like 6 months.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Right. And the technology people are pissed, and they're upset about it. So we try to devise a better way that we thought would be more customer centric. And so we created Tealium to really insulate and future-proof customers from having to do this rip and replace by, instead of using proprietary deployment techniques for a software vendor, they would just use their own sort of germane data set and data definitions, and then we would use mapping techniques to map the data to where it needed to go. So I think it's held up, and it's still, I think we were right.
So you leave Website Story after the acquisition.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the rip and replace. You go over to Tealium, and you start building this empire. And what's the core function of Tealium?
So as when we started Tealium, I had an affinity for the customer side of things. I was an engineer at Website Story, but I was always on the edge of getting on customer calls and going and seeing customers, because I was helping them with their deployments and their implementations. So I had always had that customer facing gene, so to speak. Not many engineers have it. I think more engineers need to have it. But it's a switch that flips somewhere in your career, and once it flips, it never goes back. And I think some of the most successful engineers are the ones that can sit in front of customers and actually. I mean, I love it when an engineer can do a little bit of a sales pitch. I think that's just amazing. But my strategy there was I wanted to look at. I was looking at these other businesses. I was looking at the way that they had done things in the traditional, oh, well, at Oracle we did this, and well, at Salesforce we did this, and I thought I want to do this a little bit differently. I want to reinspect the factory on this. And the first thing was, normally customer success and sales are very tethered together, and I didn't like that model. Sales guys are sales guys, and they have a great job and they're very important, but you don't always want to talk to somebody who was trying to sell you something, especially when you're dealing with software. And so I thought about it, and I wanted to couple customer success with engineering. And I thought, this is going to give me much better feedback into the product. This is going to let me know what the customers are thinking. And it's also going to bind engineering to the customer success organization, knowing that they're part of the same team. And so when a customer is unhappy or software is not working quite the way that they want it to, or they want some new features, I have engineers to fall back on. And so for me, that was maybe the big core strategy that I put in place early on, was that I wanted to own all aspects of the product and how the customers use them, and then we would figure out how to link sales and customer success when it came time to do upsells and renewals.
So why do people buy from Tealium? Like, what's your core offering?
So if you go back like 10 years, people had bought into this idea that they needed analytics, and they needed to have insight into what was going on their website, on their mobile apps, maybe even some of the advanced people in their stores. And that was sort of the de facto solution. And we really helped pioneer that market. And so we understand it very, very well. Then what you've seen is you've just seen this explosion of vendors that provides technology solutions that use that sort of same data collection technique, which is sort of the direct pixel that's making a web request back to some sort of collection system, and then compiling and putting all that data together for analysis. And so what we saw was, and you wouldn't believe the growth. It went to where there were 500 companies in a year, and now today there's probably 7,000 or 8,000, maybe even more. And there's these Lumascape slides that people have put together that have they're not even an eye chart anymore. You need a microscope to be able to see all the vendor names on it, but they just shoved all the vendor logos into this, and it just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, the logo sizes. And so there's just a lot of vendors out there. And as you would imagine, the world is starting to get to where it runs on data, and understanding who your customers are and trying to build a better experience for them, that requires you to understand that data. And so everybody's doing it. But everybody wants this data. And so now you get to a situation where the deployment or the launching of all this software is a really difficult task. And so when you go back 10 years, people had one or two, maybe three software vendors running on their websites, running on their mobile apps. Now it's like 90 that they're using, and it's incredibly complicated. And it's typically driven by the marketing and the BI and the data science and the data analytics areas of the team, which don't necessarily always have the engineering capabilities to deploy, especially on the client-facing products. So our software comes in and helps companies just do data orchestration, build a solid foundation of data, and then orchestrate where that goes to any and all of the vendors that you need. We help, we sort of help companies build their data stack.
I've noticed a couple of companies that are similar, at least from the sales website, like yours, come into the market like in the past 2 or 3 years? I know you've been around since 2008, but this data collection, universal data collection idea, but what I see is that they're mostly like services, because you have to have a lot of understanding of how to collect the data. So if I'm like a company, and like let's just use LeaderBits for example, right?
Yep.
And you can tell me if I'm wrong. This will just be for fun, right? So we've got these things where like guides get downloaded, people visit the website, like all these different events happen everywhere, and it's been like ridiculously difficult to tie everything together, because we're using Zapier and we're sending stuff everywhere, and it's like, so is that something that you guys solve?
It actually is. It's exactly what we do. The idea is all of these solutions that you're trying to use, they need data, and so we say, listen, let's put all the data in one place and let's make that data available to everybody. And I joke with my CEO hates it when I say this, but if we get the data wrong, at least it's consistent across all your systems.
Right.
But the idea is, let's get all the data in one place, and there's all kinds of benefits of that, where engineers have to do a little bit less work, and it's a little bit more understandable for them to get this data foundation in place. And then hopefully what we start to do is just sort of breed this culture where companies realize, okay, I know that I need to do this. I know that I need to measure it. I know that I need to interact with my customers. So I need to have a data foundation that describes the application, the customer, the product, whatever it might be. And so that's where we sit to just help build them. There's this foundation of data, and then from there, it's how do I share the data with the vendors that need it? How do I provide a single source of the truth for my visitor profiles, so that I don't have I don't have a definition of a customer in system A and a definition of customer in system B. We want to have a definition. If I were looking at LeaderBits and I just built a very simple identity capability of like what a VIP customer is, maybe someone that is a subscriber of LeaderBits is a VIP customer. Understanding who that customer is and that they are a VIP customer across all of your various systems is important. And there's a lot of companies that can't even do that. But then the idea is, if I talk with your email targeting team, they may have a different definition of who a VIP customer is. And if I talk to your social or ad tech teams or your on-site personalization teams, they all may have different definitions of who a VIP customer is.
And so do you find that like when you go to do these integrations and work with these companies that you end up smoothing that out for them? Because you'll find that, yeah.
We really do. We not only smooth it out, but then we start to accentuate and we start to add on to it by doing persona exercises and saying, okay, well, let's look at let's look at the types of customers that you want to interact with. And in most cases, what you'll see is you'll talk to, even in some cases, some very, very large and some very well-funded retailers, as an example, that say that before Tealium, we were able to create 4 audiences, and we were able to target those 4 audiences. And that's what they had done for the 18 months before Tealium was in place. When Tealium became in place, within the first 6 months, they had taken that audience up to 96. This is an actual example of a San Francisco retailer. And so multi-brands, very, very big store. They closed the gap on clothing, let's just say that. But
Yeah.
but the idea is, it's really great to see when you see the marketers and the data people struggle to understand their customers and define who their customers are, and only be able to get a certain number of audiences created. And then after our software is in place, it's exponential what they're able to do.
I'm gonna look more into that, because like it's just been really interesting. Like it's funny because I'm an engineer, right? So like I grew up writing web code mostly.
Yeah.
And then when I don't know, it just happened. Like life happened so fast. Now I have like you said, I've got like 20 JS files for like each different little thing I need. And I tried piping data back and forth, but yeah, I'll definitely look more. One of the other interesting things I was looking at was like video percentage watch. Like I want to be able to develop like, all right, this person downloaded a guide, they visited the site 3 times, they've watched 60% of these videos. But the thing is, like, everything's so proprietary. Like Vimeo does have it, or Wistia has it, but Vimeo doesn't, but like this company does. And then you're having to include, you have to change your video service, include their stuff, Zapier. It's just, it's a lot of work.
It is absolutely a lot of work, and there's continuity challenges. And you're right, no software solution is going to have everything that you want to have. And that, honestly, some of the benefit that we have at Tealium is rather than putting a sort of a proprietary implementation technique directly in your web or mobile properties, you put a generic one like Tealium that's very self-describing, and then you may decide, hey, this is the best video analytics company for me today, but in 2 years they've stopped innovating and there's a new company that's come in that you're really, really excited about. The idea to go back and change, to rip and replace that proprietary code on the page and put a new one. With Tealium, you just go in and flip a switch and say, I'm done with this vendor, I want to add this vendor, and then this is the setup, this is my account, and you're ready to go. It's literally a number of clicks to get something up and running.
So you guys a $1 billion company yet?
Depending on who you ask.
You little unicorn going on.
Unicorn, right? Yeah, you're right. Right. We're like a quarter horse unicorn.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're close. I think we're close.
So you're right in the middle of this growth scale phase, right? You got the startup growth scale phase. So the team that you had when you started in 2008, right? Did they have all the qualities that you need today? Like, how does that difference?
So this is now starting to become my sort of mantra that I firmly believe in. And I learned a lot of it with my first traffic school business, because I realized very much that I was a startup guy and I was not a growth guy and not a scale guy. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting part of tech in that when you look at a sales or comparatively to a sales organization or comparatively to a marketing organization, the continuity is not as required, right? With sales, you get a guy that comes in who's a scrappy sales guy and he helps start your sales team and launch it and get it ready to go. Then you bring in a little bit more polished guy that's run this much business at this kind of a company. And then you bring in somebody big that's done it at Salesforce or Oracle or SAP or something like that. But the continuity is not essential. You can ramp a rep and you can get them going and you can put them in at the right time. Marketing is very similar, right? You can take some of the marketing slogans from 4 or 5 years ago, but they don't really mean anything today. It's a little bit of they feel a little bit stateless in comparison to tech, where in tech you just can't say, hey, I'm just gonna reboot my entire engineering team and start it all over, right? There's a tribal knowledge is valuable in engineering. So the idea is, how do you look at engineers and hire the ones that have those startup skills that you need in the early days? And then how do you invest in those employees to make sure that they understand how they need to change their behaviors to become a growth technologist and then to become a scale technologist? And that's an area where I have some very candid conversations with my engineering leaders, even my individual contributors on the team. And I say, listen, you're great for this portion of the company, but we're moving into this next area. I need you to start doing more things like this. I need you to read these books. I need you to sign up for things like LeaderBits. We just, we're a customer now.
Thank you.
But you're welcome. Thank you. But we're investing in in our technology people, because you do need to have that continuity. I'm fortunate that we started the company in 2008, but we weren't really funded until 2011. And so I'm coming up on about 8 years of funding, and I'm going to be celebrating a lot of 8-year anniversaries with the technology guys that I hired as soon as I got that money. So I've had guys with me for the entire ride.
So some of these individuals have been able, when you sat down, you had these candid conversations with them about their areas, where their walls are, where their boxes, that they've been able to read the books and learn the skills and grow themselves to stay on the train.
It is. Now, it hasn't always been a first class seat on the train. There have been times where their head's been hanging out the window, and the wind's been blowing pretty heavily. But yeah, it's my job, I think, to take these guys and to use some of my history of where my skill set broke down and sort of capped out, to just be transparent with these people and say, look, this is what we need to do, and we can't do things like this anymore. We have to do it this way. And not all of them make it, but I've been very fortunate that most of them have made it.
The thing I like about you is that you had these direct conversations and you visualized with it, by drawing the box and showing them where the company is at and where you believe their experience is at. You gave them the option and the insight to then go, you put the ball in their court, where if they wanted to put in the work, they had the opportunity. And the reason why I like to call that out and point that out with you is because I've seen a lot of inexperienced leaders not know how to articulate that or identify it. And instead they just say that person will never be, and then they move on, or they try to look to something else. They don't even bring up the conversation or have that opportunity presented.
And there's some of it that's maybe, there may be a little bit of cowardice in the way that I do it, in that when you start a company and you are, I can't even afford to take these people out to lunch in the early days, right? I mean, it's just like, just get them on the phone, and I'm begging them to come work for my company. And I'm telling them it's a risk. And I know you've got a wife, and I know you've got kids, and this is a big risk, and I can't pay you. I can just promise this stock option future, which is going to take a decade to pay out. First off, you get good at sales at that point when you start trying to acquire talent. But the idea behind it is that a lot of these people took a big risk and took a bet. They bet on me to come over, and I owe it to them to bet on them and invest in them to keep them around as long as I possibly can, even if it means moving people to other jobs. And that's kind of the beautiful thing when you're in a growth phase of a company, that a lot of times you can just create new jobs and say, you know what, you're going to be really good at this, so I'm creating this job because that's where your passion lies and that's where your skill set lies.
No, I love it. I love, I first started reading about that from Netflix, about how they were doing that really well in their culture. And that was one of I know they have like that, infamous deck, right, with like all these things about them. But the coolest thing I've taken from them, or that I've seen the market sort of replicate or start to do, is this idea that you can go on these like different missions. Your job is flexible within the organization if you speak up. And I like that, because I think that's a good way to keep people on board. It
really is. I had a guy, there's a guy that I worked with at Website Story. He was the QA engineer for my component. So we've worked very closely together for the last 16 years. And he was one of the guys that I didn't have to sell to come to work with Tealium. He was begging me about every month to give him a job because he wanted to work together again. And so a couple years in, he came up to me and he said, man, I got to tell you, he said, this is absolutely the most perfect job I could ever want. This job just fits me so perfectly. And I said, yeah, that's because I made the job around who you are, right? It's not like I wrote up a job listing and thought, oh man, this guy's going to be perfect for this. It was, I knew what your skill set was. I knew what your value proposition was. I knew where your passion lied, and I built a job around that.
Do you find and that so you're a founder and a technologist, and so you have that founder mentality. Do you find that that it's hard to get other people within the organization to take risk or to act in that type of fashion? Or
I don't actually. It is very infectious. It's like, it's a switch that you have to turn on. So you have to spend time with people, and you have to get them into this. Once you get them into that mindset, you can't turn it off. I've just hired a new head of product. I have not been a guy that's built out traditional product management organizations. I wanted to own it myself, but again, in scale fashion, I've built up a product team now, and really smart guy. I mean, I'm so thankful that he's here. He's a fantastic talent, and so he said, listen, he said, I really want this job. I really want to work at Tealium. I'm super excited about this. He said, but for us to fast track this, he said, you and I need to do like a road trip together. We should go to Vegas, or, we should go out to Palm Springs or something, but we need to spend a lot of time together and find out if we're complementary and we can handle each other. And brilliant idea. We did it. We came out and hung out for a long time. And I'm already seeing from him that entrepreneurial fire, that founder fire, where he's again, one of my mantras is reinspect the factory. And he really is. He's looking at stuff and saying, this is not right. I think we should do it this way. I think we should do this differently. And these are some fundamental changes about how we're doing things. So I think people have it. I think the right people have it. And it's exciting for me to engage with them and sit down and kind of excite them and just kind of give them some of my founder energy, and hopefully they absorb it and then they start to use it in their job, because I think it's important. I think founder energy is essential for success.
I agree. And most of the companies start to die out when the founders are gone after, what is it, like 30 or 40 years is the average Fortune 500 company length? It's like not incredibly long.
Some of my VC investors, the ones that have been around since like the A round and the B round, just recently, probably in the last 6 months, pulled me aside and said, took me out for, we have the board meetings together, but it's rare that they'll go and say, hey, let's go out for drinks. Yeah. So we went out for drinks, and immediately it just turns to, so how are you doing? And it's like, feels like I'm talking to my mom. But the idea, he said, he said, you're over that 10-year mark. And he said, a lot of founders get kind of itchy right now, and they think, they want to go, and they want to go do something else. He's like, how are you feeling about it? And for me, I don't know what else I would do. I love this stuff, and I love I don't have that much desire to go start something over. I like what we've built right now, and I love the people. And then there's this investment that I'm making in them, and I know that they've put their trust in me, and I've made my investment in them, and it's too good of a thing to move on and do something else. So I'm constantly re-energized as a founder to keep going out and doing this every day, and I don't see myself doing anything differently for the next 10 years.
It's like, if you've got momentum, that's the most attractive thing you could possibly have.
Yeah, it really is. And you have, it's a blank canvas with what we can do in the future. And in some cases, the startup stuff is really fun, but for me, now there are different challenges out there. Now there's different summits that you want to hit. I'm looking out the window of my hotel room, and I'm looking at the Minnesota Twins ballpark downtown, which is very cool. In San Diego, we have a really cool ballpark downtown, Petco Park, and I want that to be called Tealium Park. And
Ooh,
so
yeah, there we go. Come on
that's,
now.
that's the goal. That's the naming rights are up in 2026. So
Oh, you've looked into it. This is amazing.
yeah. It's it's a funny story. I was playing at a golf tournament, and the president of the Padres came up and was doing a presentation. It was one of those kind of like financial things where they give you a free round of golf, but you got to listen to their financial pitch beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And so the president of the Padres gets up there, and so he gives a speech, and he starts asking, does anybody have any questions? And people are asking. I didn't want to ask any questions, but people started asking questions that I didn't think were too bright. And so then I felt very comfortable. So they're asking do you think baseball cards will come back? And, what do you think about steroids? And it's like, come on, these are not good questions. So I raised my hand, and I just said, hey, listen, when does Petco lose their naming rights for Petco Park? And he gave me a double take. He's like, that is a really weird question. And I said, yeah, I want to know. And he said, well, why? And I said, I've got a business here in San Diego, and we're growing like crazy, and I'd love to put my company's name on that park when it's available. So yeah, that's a big goal. I mean, it's a bit of a vain goal, but that's a goal. But I would say the big goal for me that truly drives me is when I look at all of my employees, and every employee at Tealium is a shareholder of Tealium stock. One of the big things I look at is this concept of new car, new house, and new life. And everybody that works at Tealium when Tealium goes public or whatever we do, is going to be able to get a new car. Some will get a really nice car. Some will get some more modest cars. But it's how many people do I get into that new house, and how many people do I get into that new life category, right? How cool is it to say, I started Tealium and I turned out 50 millionaires out of San Diego, or I turned out 100 millionaires out of San Diego, right? That's what drives me now, because these people invested in me, and I want to invest back in them.
Yeah, and that's why I like you.
That's why I like you, because you like me.
Yeah, but that's the thing that really drives the greatest people ever, because it's like you can only get so much money. It's like the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? Like, you can have your house, you can have your car, you can have your food, you get those things covered, and then it's just about doing something very difficult, very great, and helping out a bunch of people. And
Yeah.
It actually doesn't take that much work in life to get to that point where you're like, the only other thing to do is just to do something great, because I've covered all of my basic needs. And that's why, I read the stories of all these billionaires, and I read their books, and I just constantly am inundated with their content. And some of the greatest people, they say that some of their biggest regrets were not setting their goals big enough, because they got what they set out for. It took 20 years, but they always get like the 80-20 rule. The 80% of the time they get what they set out for if they put in the work.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna get the stadium. That's easy. And then then you got to get like 100 people, into your 3 stages.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, there's a leadership thing where they put quadrants up there, and there's there's a happy quadrant, there's a cozy quadrant, a boring quadrant, and a stressed quadrant. You ever seen that?
No, but there's 3 I don't want to be in.
Yeah. So imagine like the top right is happy, and the top left is cozy, and the bottom left is boring, and the bottom right is stressed. And the idea is, you get people that get into that cozy quadrant. You got to figure out how do I get them back productive. You get people that are in the boring quadrant. And so I find that life is best right between that line between stressed and happiness, right? I always want to be stressed. Because then when you tackle the stress, you're really happy about what you've accomplished, and then you go back, and it's just sort of a ping pong game between stress and happiness. And so for me, having we're 450 employees now, having that many families, having that many people that are tied to us, it keeps the pressure on, it keeps the stress on, because I know that there are a lot of families that are counting on that stuff. And I want, I'm competitive in nature, and I want Tealium to be successful because I want it to be successful, and I think we're doing the right thing. But you take on that extra pressure of all your employees, and you think, I got to go out there and do a fantastic job because these guys are holding down their job and I'm out doing mine, and we're a team.
Yeah, before I was leading, and I would hear, like, before I was a leader, and I would hear that whole, like, oh, you don't work for you work for the team, you work for the leaders work for the team. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Then you get into the position, you're like, oh my goodness, like you actually do, like, I exist to find incredibly great people and work work very hard for them to make sure that they can get their paycheck. And
it is, you become an offensive lineman real quick, right? I mean, it's like, you guys are going to be carrying the ball, I'm just blocking and getting things out of your way.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about that quadrant with stress and happiness on that line, I'm living in that world.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I haven't been in the bored quadrant or the other quadrant in a long time, because for me, it's like it's constantly stress, happiness. But then what I found, though, is that as I go through this rhythm and I like mentally track it, I'm always like, what zone am I in? Where am I? You're never stuck. You're always going through something. So I'm like, okay, right now I'm in the happy moment. So what I need to do is need to, enjoy the happiness, but don't let myself get too happy, because I gotta, focus and use this energy instead of running around being happy. I gotta use this energy to apply towards something. And then when the low comes, I'm like, okay, the good news about the fact that I feel horrible right now and that it's never going to work out and the sky is black is that the moment I realize this is the lowest point of the trough. This is the worst part, is when I realize that, like, this sucks and I want to die. So that means it's only going to get better, and I'm going to be on my path to a high. So then I get all positive again.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what it is. I mean, it's every time you see a challenge, it's just an opportunity, right? I mean, the world's not going to end tomorrow. So it's like, I don't have to fix all this stuff by tomorrow. It's just an opportunity, right? Somebody comes in and something goes wrong, or we have a customer that says, hey, we don't like the way this works, or this is, we have a scale. We have big challenges at Tealium with scale, and we're unfortunately unlucky with the idea that we launch a new product and then it's like, okay, well, who's going to be the first customer to use it? And it's like, honestly, I would love it. I would love it. And again, we'll work this out after the call, because I want to get Tealium working with LeaderBits. I want to get you guys using our software. But I'd love it if LeaderBits was the type of company that was rolling out some of our new features and trying them out from a beta perspective. Yeah. Because you guys are small volume, right? And it's not not massive. The problem I get is that I roll out a new product and we say, well, who are the first couple companies that want to use it? And they say, oh, Microsoft, IBM, The Gap, Facebook. I mean, these are all of our customers, and they all have like massive volume. I am very proud of this. In 2018, Google handled 1.2 trillion searches, right? That's a lot of volume. Mm-hmm. We handled 3 trillion events, 2.5 times more than that.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
That's
right?
Really awesome.
It's awesome. So we have to come back to the drawing board. Sometimes we'll build a product and then realize, man, we got to do some refactoring on this stuff because it's got to scale, and it's not scaling horizontally the way that we want it to. And that's like one of the lowest points in your career, when you make a design and you build a product and you realize you got to go switch the engine out on it, right? I mean, we bet on this software platform as our database, and now we have to move off to another database, and that's like major surgery. And so those are some very stressful low points, but same thing. They're just opportunities. You get through them, and when you get out the other side, then you get to that happy phase where you can say, hey, Google, you're 2.5 times smaller than I am from a volume perspective.
I love it. No, and so let's get you some exposure to talent. I know you have a fantastic team, but you're growing. You always need great people. You're dealing with a large volume of events. So is there a specific industry or type of person that would be a good fit for your company?
That's a really good question. The gamut of employees that we have is really, really broad. I mean, from I think if you look at the way that the industry is going, I think it's it's around software usability. It's around being open to customer suggestions and being able to listen to customers and be able to turn that out into requirements. I do believe that traditional engineers need to get a step closer to the customer, and I think they need to understand the customer more rather than just having a 19-page PDF thrown onto their desk that says, go build this because I say so. So I think around the UX design, UX research, I think the world is going to be decided on usability and ease of use. And so I think if you build products that are always easy to use and easy to understand, those are going to be fantastic. I think information architecture is a big thing too. Not so much like what do I name my documents, but how the documentation and the support documentation around content on how to use the product. So I think more video is going to come into play. And so I'm interested in people that want to build, that want to take risks on product design and want to build cutting edge usability and new design patterns, as well as people that understand that while engineering's job is to get software out of the factory, there's a whole other line of business out there that has the responsibility to put it out in the showroom and polish it up, make sure that it's well described, very usable in nature, well marketed, well organized. Those are the kind of people. I mean, the creative people that look at apps and say like, wow, I really like the design of this app. I really like the flow or feel of this app, versus this other one. And I'm going to move off software solution X because I'm going to go to Y because I just like the way it feels. And we all have that. We have our to-do list software, and we have our calendar software, and we have our note-taking software, and we all choose different stuff because that software just connects with us. And so I like people that are passionate about connecting software to people. I guess that's the long-winded answer, I think, in a sentence.
Well, no, I love it because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I will choose products over design. Like I will choose a specific product because of its design, because I have to spend time there. It's like the building you want to spend time in, right? But one of my favorite, just as a side note, one of my favorite docs that I have ever come across, Stripe, like payment processor, their docs are like beautiful.
Really?
Oh yeah, I've been following Stripe since like the first year Stripe came out because I was using this horrible thing called authorize.net. And I was complaining about it because it was just ridiculous to use. And somebody told me about Stripe. They're like, yeah. And I literally did not believe that it was the way it was. I was like, what's the catch? Like you could just sign up and just do it. There's no like, you have to meet with a person, go through underwriting, like all this stuff. And then I was like, and they're built for developers. I was like, get out of here. And they won an entire industry through the hearts of developers.
Yeah.
That's why Stripe won.
That's what developers want. Developers want to be able to solve their problems on their own, and that's where that whole documentation and video presentation stuff, where to showcase to developers how to do something, and then in some cases, I think you take the next step, which is to start to understand based on what the developer does in the tool to start to recommend. Hey, these are some videos I think would be interesting for you as new capabilities. And again, I want you to use more of my software. So that's the goal. That's the goal there. It's just better engagement.
Ooh, that's interesting. Like personalization of how the developers are using the platform.
Yeah.
dictating the content that gets deployed to them.
Right. And that's because the idea is that in most cases, you look at software and you think, Salesforce is an easy example to attack. There's a billion things that software does, right? I don't scratch the surface on it, but if you understand my usage patterns, to be able to start clustering that and recognizing that other people that do what Mike does, they also do this, this, and this. So I'm going to showcase that to Mike to try to get him to use more of my software. Because at the end, I'm building a stronger advocate, I'm building a stronger champion, and I'm hopefully building better retention.
Is this like a spin-out project Tealium's working on?
No. This is what we do. I mean, we do this a lot for like B2C companies, but when you start to get into subscription sort of models, which again, the world is going to subscription. You know this.
Yeah.
We're looking at the subscription model vendors looking at just like churn prevention, like looking at somebody and saying, hey, this person has stopped watching Hulu over the last 6 days. And that's an indicator based on their watching patterns leading up to this. That's an indicator that this person is going to churn. And again, with machine learning, we can get down to the point where we say, this person is going to churn in 17 days, 21 minutes. To react to that signal, to get that prediction, say I've got a confidence score of 85% that indicates this person is going to churn, and now try to get in front of it by re-engaging them with, and I'm just using Hulu as an example because I was watching it last night. But the idea is I want to re-engage, and I want to re-engage with more content. Now, then the idea is, what do I watch on Hulu? Like for me, I can't sit down long enough and watch a movie, so I just have to have sitcoms cycling in the background so I can pick up jokes for my on-stage presentations. And so it's a lot of Seinfeld, it's a lot of King of Queens, it's a lot of Sunny in Philadelphia,
dude,
stuff like
come
that.
on.
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna hang out now. I've seen every episode of Seinfeld like 3 times.
Yeah, so that's so I just have that like cycling in the background, but the idea is Hulu should know, and they do know, that those are the things that I watch. So don't recommend a documentary on drug trafficking out of Mongolia. I'm not interested in that, right? You know what I watch? I watch comedy sitcoms. So those are the things. And so that if I start to disengage with that brand, with that product, whatever it is, bring me back, right? And bring me back by looking at what other people that are like me enjoy. That's just something that's something that we will see happen more and more. We're in a wonderful time as consumers because businesses have to get good to keep and stay with to keep our money and to keep our business.
Yeah. Well, we do that with we got LeaderBot. And so, yeah, LeaderBot, like we have I don't know if we've done this customization for you, but you define like a threshold, and we will watch the leaders as they engage in their momentum. And then when they start to fall off, like, because it happens, right? Because you get busy, there's projects, there's things. LeaderBot will start sending you emails that are like motivational, and then including past entries that you've done, like when you had real big success with like you giving credit to a team member and it turned out awesome, you're really surprised. And LeaderBot will say to you like, hey Mike, remember when you did this, like with Susan or John or whatever, like keep up the momentum and take 10 minutes and click here. And so we re-engage, we call them re-engagement emails. But yeah, LeaderBot will get personal with you and motivate you. And then we have like, we designed it out like where he gets more intense. Well, I say he because it's anthropomorphic, but like he'll get more intense with you, and then he kind of like eases up, and like then he gets more intense. And so we designed this cadence for like maximum engagement, because we're just sitting back here looking at the data, right? And we're just like, how do we create better leaders faster? And that's like our mantra here, right? And so when we look at the customer, like as much as I love the company, and I know it may be wrong to say in some regards, but like I don't look at you, Mike, as the customer. I look at the individual as the customer, the individual using the product, because I know that as long as I keep making it the best possible product for that human, that everything else will come together, because the company, that's like reporting features and things like that. But as long as we focus the product on being the best it could possibly be for the individual, then they'll stay engaged and continue to improve.
We are going to hang out because we think very much alike. I've said to I say to my employees on every onboarding, and I've said this for the last 10 years, if you stay close to the problems of the customer and the challenges of the customer, you're always going to build a great business. And that's the way it is. And like you're saying with the LeaderBot thing, you know, I mean, one industry that needs to do this, especially with me, are like gyms. You know, like, hey, remember when you were working out this many days, you lost this much weight, you know, you felt good, you were improving your cardio capabilities, whatever it is. I think that's the world we're going to, where it's going to be encouraging people to come back and do the right things, whether it be better health, smarter, remember last month when you read this book, you know, you should, this is another book that you should look at reading. It's going to be sort of that sort of suggestive content or suggestive action that I do think people want, because we're so busy and we want to be, in some cases, we want to pick and choose everything we want to do. But in some cases, it's like, listen, just make it easy on me. Just tell me what my next workout should be. Tell me what my diet should be. Tell me what book I should read. Tell me what show I should watch. Because and then I have the choice to decide, yeah, I'm going to trust it, or no, I'm not going to trust it. But you're putting more content in front of me, and that I think is key.
Yeah, that now I just need something for like my spouse that figures out what dinner is.
Right. I
don't want to think of it. Just let me pick.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Right.
Yep.
We could make it, rather than me getting you something and you being disappointed with what I get you. Let's change the model a little bit. Why don't you go pick 10 things and I'll surprise you with the one that I choose? But you know that you're going to get something you wanted. So yeah, no, it's good. It's a good time. It's a fun time.
I love it. Well, I'll respect your time today because it's 10:30 now EST. You have some amazing new customers to go start working with, so I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, Joel, thank you very much. This was an absolute pleasure. I'd love to do it again. This is fantastic.